as we try to do each Sunday, is a little quick recap of what's coming ahead in the week. And then I'd love to have my special guests. And this week, I have my very special guest, my cornerstone to Projectkin, Kathy Stone, joining me today to talk about, some of the fun things that she has coming with Kathy's coaching. So first, let me give you a quick recap for what's coming up this week and a little sneak peek at next week. So on Tuesday this week, which, I don't know, that is July 1st, which is, say it with me, everybody, Canada Day. On Tuesday this week. Yay! So Tuesday this week, we have our monthly office hours, which is no worries, Jane, in the car, on the road, having trouble with sound. That's okay. You can come, you can go. We'll see if we can't recap for you. That's okay. It'll also be in the video. So on Tuesday morning, in our California morning, which is the early afternoon in the East Coast or the early evening in Europe, and you should be in bed by now in Asia Pac, we have our Mission Genealogy, my sister publication, Mission Genealogy office hours, which has become, I think, a very productive Q&A session. I might come up with something to talk about if somebody asks me a really good general question at the beginning, but I think it's really wonderful the way it's been working as a series of Q&A questions that at least I try to do my best in answering, and what we're finding increasingly is everybody's chiming in with answers, and I think that's kind of what it's all about as a community. So that's on Tuesday. Nothing on Thursday because just among us Americans, it's not so great to do something on the day before a big long holiday. So yeah, no. But next week on Thursday, which would be the 10th, that's 3 plus 7, on the 10th, we have a very special guest, Cynthia Nims, who is active over there in the food Substack, is joining us over here because she's talking about family too. Because what do you talk about when you talk about food? You talk about family. So she had a very clever idea for a basically storytelling potluck. And I love the idea so much. We're off to the races with an event, and my good friends, both in the UK and over there in Australia, reminded me that, what's a potluck? Really, that's a weird American thing. So it is a share a dish or share a plate, depending on where in the world you are. It still comes to the same fun, and using that to tell the stories behind the food and within the family, I think, is a lovely idea. So you can still register for that at projectkin.org/events, where you will find the event on the 10th, as well as the Mission Genealogy event on the Tuesday, because secret insider tip, I use the same calendar for both Mission Genealogy and Projectkin, because why keep them separate? So, with all of that behind me, Kathy, as in Kathy's, wait for it, coaching, what do you have going on?
Well, hi, I'm going to say first, hi, David. We missed saying hello to David, so I'm glad to see David Shaw here.
Welcome, David.
I'll just tell a little potluck story, and this might help you understand, because we have potlucks in Canada as well. And this, when you said, what is a potluck, you triggered it in my mind. We used to do potlucks all the time at work. And we had one of the ladies that was always our social coordinator. She liked to plan the potluck. So you got assigned what you were going to bring. And then I always said, well, to me, what a potluck could be is everybody brings a dish, and if everybody brings dessert, you're lucky. And if everybody brings salads, not so much lucky. But that's my definition of a potluck. But the planned potlucks were quite amusing to me anyway. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Just a twist on that, if we could talk about this later for potlucks, I always like the alphabet trick. Basically, it says if your first name or last name begins with X, Y, or Z of the letters, you do these kinds of things. And you have to know who your audience is, of course, before you do that. But ways to do it. Go on.
Well,
This
and
is not actually about the
potlucks are
baseball
very
stories.
popular. I'm guessing here this week with Canada Day coming up because we do barbecues and picnics and things, probably much like you do in the U.S. coming down and later in the week with Fourth of July celebrations. So
Always
it's
behind you.
one of those weeks. So. And I would like to encourage everyone to join Mission Genealogy on Tuesdays for the Q&A sessions because I've learned so much in those sessions, and there are a lot of talks. A lot of the chatting is about getting the most out of our Substacks and other questions. But it's to me, it's just brilliant, and I've learned so much from it from everybody coming and participating. So it's great.
And
So
you
what am
don't
I?
even have to be a member to come. It's
Yeah.
nice, but you also get to meet a lot of nice people. The
Mhm.
recordings are automatically sent to everybody who is a subscriber. So that's really key. There we go.
Yes.
Okay. So what do
So
you have coming, Kathy?
what do I have coming? As you know, I've launched my Kathy's Coaching, my own Substack, which I'll be blogging in. Launched that a little while ago. And thank you from the bottom of my heart to everyone who's following me and has subscribed. I so appreciate it. And it's nice to see. I'm working hard on trying to get more content out and some more blogs up and some newer things. I have lots of ideas, and much like photo collections, I'm a little short on time sometimes to get those blogs out, but I'm hoping to expand it. And I think I've mentioned before, I'm finishing up one last big client job that I have as a professional photo organizer, and then I will be truly no longer taking big organizing jobs, working on my own photos, and hopefully through Kathy's coaching, help people with their photos and organizing their own family photos and families telling their family stories because it's so important. So I'm going to launch today after this call. Barbara will put the link in the notes. A little survey just to find out because I put a note up last week or the week before about a survey I had read that was done by Scan Cafe that they surveyed that's a digitizing company. Um, I will not comment on the quality, but okay, it's a digitizing company. And they did a survey of their clientele and they asked how many people had digitized all their photos or sort of what percentage. And it was only something like the lower end, the 24% of people who were clients of a scanning company who had digitized all their photos, only 24%. And then they asked a separate question altogether, and that was how many people look at their old photos. And that was disappointingly 90% who hadn't looked at them since they went into the boxes or the bins or anything else, which I think is a function of not having your photos organized. So I put together a little survey to see how we can help you through two ways. We have Kathy's Corner every month with Projectkin, and we're looking for some feedback from you on what would help you the most in getting your photos digitized and organized. When I they posted that little note, a lot of people came back and said, I've got a lot digitized, but I'm not organized. They're not organized yet. Well, that is one of the big steps too. And so I thought, do we need some more help with that? So we wanted to just get some feedback. So I put a little survey together. We'll launch it later, just asking where you're at with your photos and what would help you, how I could help you either through Kathy's coaching or Kathy's Corner. So, because again, as everyone knows, I really think the family photos are so important. And it's sort of, there's always I do genealogy or I organize my photos, but in reality, or I tell the stories. But in reality, I think the three of them aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. And I think a lot of it just comes at what angle do you come from at them? And a lot of people now, I think I'm going to just say, particularly in kind of around in our age group, not speaking of the audience, but Barbara and I, we're in the position where our parents have passed on. We may have I have one aunt left out of 17 aunts and uncles. I have one left still living. So
Mhm.
there's not, I have a lot of stuff and I've inherited it and from various family members. And I feel a responsibility, because it's just not responsible. I just love it. It's so interesting. I just love looking at all the old photos and trying to figure out what they are, who's in them,
Mhm.
what was
Mhm.
the stories. But the
Mhm.
stories behind those photos are so important to tell. And I remember Barbara told me one day, I was telling her, this was back a long time ago when we were working in a different platform. There's we do the one. I did it on a different platform that I said, I was telling the stories about my grandparents who were immigrants from England. They were what is known as Hudson's Bay settlers. They came over. My grandfather he was a coal miner, always wanted to be a farmer. And so I was just telling her the story and saying, I'm trying to put together just the stories about my grandparents to tell my kids and future generations. And Barbara pointed out to me at that point, which has stuck with me ever since, that um, my story, even though we're not anybody famous, well, we're getting more famous with Projectkin and everything. But other than Projectkin aside, we're not famous. You don't recognize this name. When I'm not related to Emma Stone, the actress, so not that genealogy thing, but our story's part of history, whether we're famous or not. And the same is true for every one of you out there. Your story is part of history. And we want to tell those stories and not lose them. And my other pet saying is always, in this age of decluttering and death cleaning and everything else, and does it bring me joy? Sadly, almost every piece of memorabilia in my house brings me tremendous joy, so it just stays here. And I don't think that's a concept one can apply to family history, but are we trending towards being the generation that threw away history by decluttering and just going in when faced with such overwhelming tasks as, I'm the one that got the boxes. Like, if you're the person who ended up cleaning out mom and dad's house room at there's whoever, you're the one who got the boxes. Barbara's the one who got the boxes, and it can be really overwhelming. And so I think that's how I come at it, from family history being important, but it's developed in me an interest in genealogy as well. I was dabbling in genealogy until I found Substack, or Barbara found us in Substack, and I met all the wonderful genealogists here, and I'm learning so much that I'm more interested in genealogy. But I think, for me, family history, from my perspective and from as a photo manager, mine started as with the photo. And even though the old saying is a picture's worth 1,000 words, a lot of them are not worth 1,000 words. A lot of them you look at and go, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
And so we need to tell those stories. And I think that's where I see and then the natural offshoot of that is to want to ask more about it.
Yeah.
And where did they come from? Like, well, my fortunate cousin's done a lot of research on the coal mining industry in Durham County
Yeah.
in England, and so I learned more about it there. So
Yeah.
it's
So true. Just as you're saying that, uh, it dawned on me, for my journey into what we're doing now with Project Kin. My journey, in some ways, came to genealogy to tell the context in photos, and you can't understand I mean, what is genealogy anywhere? You're getting the context of one person next to the other person, and putting those two together, the stories and the relationships, is such an intertwining that it really brings something far greater. And I want to welcome so many of you while we've been chatting, just going through this. First, Dr. Mary Marshall talking about having received those boxes and been overwhelmed. The pictures are, yes, you start to feel that joy, but a lot of that is finding the joy of understanding their
mhm,
context. What about it? Maud and Andrea, Kyla, welcome to this conversation. Feel free to chat as we get going here. You know, when I was a kid, many of our photos, for whatever reason, were on slides. I have only begun to look at those. But we used to have a joke about those black slides, which, as you know, back in the days of color cameras and 35 millimeter film, the occasional black slide just
mhm.
happened. And we used to call those Louie in the dark, because we had a black dog who would be hiding, take a picture of Louie in the dark, and there you go. It's a black picture. But I have a print that my grandfather took of my grandmother's bedroom. Think about that. This was taken before they were married. So, so many questions, right? Well, as it turns out, I now pretty well guess that their engagement was like 2 years, and what's really fascinating about a picture of a bedroom in 1912 is all the stuff on the wall. It says so much about a girl's bedroom, 19-year-old woman's bedroom. It's fascinating. You'd never see that anywhere else. Did they think this was important? Probably not. It was probably he was actually a photographer. He's probably just playing with a camera. It's fascinating. Anyway, made me think of that.
And it is so fascinating because it triggers so many more things. I've spent my last 2 days going through the negatives that were not properly sorted and identified. I've already done those. So I'm digging around now in the 1980s, and then I'm down in the 1970s now. But I found this one, and I'm looking at them on a little viewer, which is tiny, and my eyes aren't that great, and it is very hard. Much like slides, they're really hard to go through. But if you digitize them, they are the better quality because it's the original item. So I saw this very strange picture of this something, and it looked like it was something long and skinny. I'm like, what the heck is that? Clearly no people in it. And so finally I put it in the viewer and I got the magnifying glass. I went, it was just a picture, and it must have just been the accidentally pushed the button, which back in those days was a bad thing when you only had 12 or 24 things, and then you only had the 4 flash bulbs on the little Instamatic. But it
Yeah.
was a picture of the couch and the chairs in the living room in the house I grew up in. And it was just like floods of memories coming back, which I think is one of the
Exactly.
cool things about pictures is even there, because I was about to put the big sticker on saying don't digitize. And then I went, you know what? Let's digitize that, because it's I don't have every other picture like there's people in it or we're not really focused on it. But I thought, well, this is very neat. And I did find, speaking of Louie in the Dark, I had a black dog too. And I found I was looking at the negatives before I put them into the viewer, and I'm like, what the heck? Because I also had a white cat. And so these were pictures of the black dog and the white cat, which made very interesting images on the negative until finally I got it flipped to a positive and could tell what it is. But so I've spent these last days going through memories. I just finished bagging up the negatives from a trip I took in 1978 with 2 of my best friends when we had just finished our first year of university. Yes, that's what it was. And we did we didn't do back in the day, it was the Kontiki tours were really popular, but we went on a regular bus tour. And it was like, if it's Tuesday, it must be Vienna, type of tour. But the memories from that, and I'm thinking, this is really neat because there's lots of pictures of people. And I'm remembering all the people who were on our bus tour with us, who are from all over the world. And it's just the power of that to just bring back those memories. And I thought, there's a lot of bad pictures of historic landmarks in here, but that's what they were. That's what I took. That's the story of what I saw. So I thought, yeah, let's just digitize them all. Mary's just asked what I'm doing with the negatives now that I've digitized them. What I'm
Great
doing right now,
question.
Mary, is it's a great question, and it's kind of a personal thing. What I'm doing is I'm keeping my negatives because they are the original, and I'm getting rid of the prints because negatives don't take up as much space by any stretch. And I'm not quite ready to pitch the whole thing and just keep digital. I'm still a little bit like to hang on to that. And I want to keep some of the negatives because I know how excited I get when I find a cabinet card or a daguerreotype or an ambrotype now. And someday, even though there are way more of them, that'll be after we finish downsizing and throwing everything away. Those will be that little piece of history, because
Wow.
part of the story is how it was taken. Is a part of the story. And it's like, I found, believe it or not, 110 negatives, fortunately only one strip of them, because I know they digitize very poorly, but the pictures I don't even know what the pictures are of because they're so tiny I can't see them. But I'm like, I'm going to pay and have those digitized too, or I may do them myself because there's only one roll of it. But it's like, I'm intrigued by what's on there, but then it tells the whole story about the cartridge film era, where you drop that little 110 film cartridge into the back of your little camera, and you put that little flash bulb on it and took your pictures. And it's a whole different culture, a whole different thing now than when we have that camera in I was going to pick my phone up, but I'm talking into it, so I can't pick it up. But when we have this video camera, camera in front of us every minute,
Yeah.
we have so many more pictures that have they lost some meaning when we
Yeah.
take all these pictures. And I think that's something to think about. And it's when we talk to people with digital photo collections, because in our little group here, we're kind of focused on history, and we talk more about the old photos, but we're creating our own family history digitally now. And what does that tell? And how are we organizing that? And believe me, it's like I went outside in my backyard and took like 18 pictures where I shot a whole row of the poppy blooming. Not that the poppy never blooms, it blooms every year, but it was planted by my mother. And so every year when it blooms, I have to take pictures of it. But I didn't just take a picture of the poppy. I have like 18, and probably they're not
Yeah.
going to be a whole lot different. It's just we shift from time to time, and I think it makes a whole different narrative now as to what the value of photos are.
Yeah. I would also venture to say that I think how we use our photos is very different now. I know there's the purpose of taking a picture. Especially you see that in travel photos, right? Back in the day, you would take a picture in front of the, obelisk to go home and show people what it looked like. Today, they're like, what the hell? Look it on the Google. And also, by the way, a great way to figure out where a picture was taken is to throw it in. There's some AI that will tell you where this is based on throwing the picture in if you don't recognize the landmark, which is kind of cool. Um, but just trying to, I take pictures of things like water moving and grass moving because I use it as backgrounds for things. In other words,
Mhm.
I use the digital image as my own clip art. And no one's going to stop me from that. And I have a whole, I search on sunsets and pull all these things together or beaches and use it that way. Yeah.
Well, and that's a different thing too, because it's expand that ability, and the cheapness of it has allowed more people to experiment with photography beyond taking the family snapshot. I think that's kind of a difference between before. Like when I look back through the old photos from the 60s, I just set one set. There was a Christmas, and there maybe I don't even think it filled the whole roll of 24. Or there's some other thing on it that probably happened 6 months later, because it cost a lot of money, and you took pictures often just to memorialize the event that was happening,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
opposed to, I can go out, take like the dogs were doing something cute the other day, so I should take a few pictures of them and share them with others. Like that's a whole new concept of sharing
Exactly.
on social media.
That's exactly or sharing in a group chat. I mean, our daughters live far away. So, pictures of our 2 cats, each of them have cats and dog and, sharing the pictures of the what is the pet doing today. I have more cats, I think, pictures of my cats than I probably do of my kids. I'll be honest. And I think they get that. I'm not sure. But, speaking of, pictures of your kids, to me, one of the most interesting questions about how you come to the question of photo organizing, yes, it relates in part to how old you are, not because of how old you are, but because of what what ages were your kids at when photography was at what technology
Mhm.
level, right? I mean, I have a frightening array of I thought it was a really good idea. A frightening array of low res CDs, CDs as a way to receive the photos with negatives. So I never got prints for a frightening array of my photos. Because I'm like, I'm gonna pick the good ones and then go get reprints of those. Did I
Mhm.
do that? Yeah, not really. And so I have a lot of CDs and negatives, and I need to just go get those negatives digitized because the CDs are crap,
Yeah.
to use the technical term. They were scanned at, 100 DPI, 72
Yeah.
DPI. You're only gonna look at it on a screen. What difference does it make? Wow.
Then you were going to print them, yes, and not look at
Right.
those terrible pictures on the screen. But I think and
Nobody
it ties
prints
in
from
with
a
the
digital? What are you talking about?
I think it all ties back into the whole notion of the value of photos. There's been research done in within the scrapbooking industry in particular about how seeing scrapbooks of their and pictures of their childhood helps with self-esteem in children because it shows that it was important enough to. Now, I'm not trying to dump mother guilt on everybody here either, because we all have
God,
that, but
I
it
just got it.
shows that
Oh,
it shows them that they were part of the family and their place in that. And then I think a lot of us are familiar with the value of it in with our dealing with people with dementia or Alzheimer's. There's a huge, if you ever have a chance, Rick Voigt from Vivid Pics, check out their website because they do a lot of work in in memory preserve, like that's not the word, memory loss and the value of photos in helping people with memory loss.
right. Reminiscence therapy. Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. You're welcome. I was waiting
That
for it.
was the word.
It's okay.
And it's
I
very
also have a little
important. And
plug in there, by the way. We have a project recipe that Jude Rhodes did about creating a photo book for an elder with dementia, not so that they can remember the grandchildren, because they're not, but instead to help them with their own family story that they actually will remember when they were little. It's a very different
and
shift. Go
and
ahead.
the
I
other thing
interrupted
that
you.
I read somewhere too, that the other value of that is to show their caregivers, particularly if they're out of the home, their caregivers that they who they were as a person. And that these
Absolutely.
were these were intelligent, vibrant, creative, heart live people. They were much more than the disease they have now.
Yeah. Oh, that is so true. That is so true. They call those memory boxes in
Mm.
the uh home my mom was in. And that is so, so important. And I think for the elders themselves, they might lose that. You know,
Yeah.
they might, and it can be heartbreaking. But you go to where people are at the time.
Yeah.
It's exactly the key. Well,
Yeah.
gosh, Kathy, this has been another extraordinary conversation. And Mary Marshall chimes in with, yes, they are perfect pictures for memory loss and dementia. I did two for family members, and it helped in communication. So, absolutely true. In fact, Mary, I'd love your thoughts also to Jude's recipe, and I'll drop those kinds of things into the notes to really look back on, because I think that's an ongoing topic as we think about the uses for photos that are so different from where they were. And I also want to put a little plug in as you were talking, Kathy, I was remembering the fabulous 8 steps post you did for Projectkin and actually for Ponga before that. Really walking through that sort before you scan to me is like the most surprising step in that workflow that is counterintuitive yet incredibly compelling when you think about it. Is a really terrific post to be considering. It's also on my mind because I'm still in my big scanning project, and we just unloaded another seven, count them, seven photo boxes to go through, because I already went through seven at, here's another plug, my local family search center. That was so fabulous as a way to use their high-speed scanner that you taught me about. See?
Yes.
Changing lives one print at a time. So again,
And
thank
also
you
just
all.
a little note there before you wrap up. If you have scanned all your photos and you didn't organize them, we can still help. We can still work through that. Absolutely. Don't give up. And that's part of what my survey is about, is how can I help you? And if you have time, take a few minutes. It'll launch later today. I figured I better do one last proofread of it for the typos, because I'm kind of bad at that. But trust the heart, not the head, I think is an expression a friend of mine uses a lot. So if you can fill that out and give us some, or if you want to just message me, I'm okay with that too. You don't have to fill out questionnaires. Send me a note and say, this is my pain point. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I'd love to see you talk about. you talk to me about, you write something about, whatever would help you to get moving forward with getting those stories told.
Great feedback. And she, of course, is at Kathy Stone, one of the, you own the at Kathy Stone here here on Substack. It's, it's value in name. So again, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Look at all that love blooming. Look at that. Really appreciate your help. Watch for these notes. I'm going to let this video go right to circulation. It's a Substack trick. That way, anybody who saw the email when it came out suddenly joins isn't left with, yeah, sorry, you missed it, because they'll be able to pick up on the video until it's released to me. It does a little magic processing, is released to me, and then I fill it up with all of the notes that I've been taking here. So if you do see it and there's no notes, do a refresh later, because I'll be popping those in there along with all the links and goodies, and there's always the transcript. So talk soon. So we'll see you Tuesday. And you, Kathy, are here all day, 24/7, through the chat, through the live. We're all here for you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
TTFN. Ta-ta for now, everybody. Talk soon. Bye.